What's up everyone, it's a Knife Seller here, and today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a discussion video talking about something that I've been seeing recently, and that is, I feel like there's been a major emphasis on the value of knives when I'm looking at reviews, maybe in different knife groups or on Instagram or mainly on YouTube, where people are really emphasizing the value of a knife, saying this is overpriced, this is a good value, and really just being very, very strict on it. So I'm going to talk about my opinions on that, what I think about it, so let's go ahead and get started. One of the reasons I think that people put so much emphasis on value is because, like me, I'm a content creator, and I like to think sometimes I think that my entire audience is a bunch of beginner knife guys. Now, I might have some beginner knife guys out there, and I appreciate you if you are watching, but the truth is, I only have about 1,500 subscribers, and I'm not really reaching out to a lot of people, and there is a good chance that if you're watching my channel, you really care about knives. Now, if it's someone like Nick Shabazz or Metal Complex, they reach out to a whole lot more people, so I could see them focusing on value more, because a lot of times someone may be watching them just being like, okay, I just want to get one knife under 50 bucks, and that's going to be my knife really for a long time. And so I can see why they would do that, but it's just channels similar to mine that I see really emphasizing value. And one issue that I see, or one thing that I see people doing, is comparing almost every knife to some of the knives with the best value out there. One like the Civivi Backlash, lots of those Chinese-made budget knives, they're really good values, and like if I'm getting a present for someone for Christmas or their birthday or something, I'm probably going to get something like a Civivi, CJRB, QSP, something along those lines, because they're cheap and they are knives that work. And honestly, I could probably live with this Civivi Backlash and carry this every day, and I wouldn't want to do that because I have a lot of knives that I like more than it, but it still would work for me. And I feel like when people do this, they're really just making it impossible for other companies to compete, like especially American companies. You know, people will compare, I don't even know, a lot of budget American companies, which don't really exist that much, but usually Spyderco and Benchmade and, you know, Hogue, those companies, they are producing American-made knives, usually in that $100 to $200 price range, and a lot of times they're getting compared to knives that are 50 bucks that are really good quality, and a lot of times people are just comparing the materials to each other, and on paper this one makes sense that it would be cheaper and is the better value, but you got to think made in America versus made in China. In America, they actually have to pay their employees money. I'm just messing, but it is kind of true to some extent. So that is what drives the price up, and I prefer to buy American-made knives. Haven't bought a Chinese knife in about a year. I'm not virtue signaling, and I don't really say I'm never going to buy any Chinese knife again, because as a reviewer, if there's a Chinese knife that I want to buy and review, or someone wants to loan me a Chinese knife, I'd be happy to do it just to get more content out there on my channel. So that's why I do usually buy American-made knives. If you guys are curious, I just don't really restrict myself to a standard that I don't think is necessary. So one thing that I want to ask you guys is, how big of a factor does value play when you're buying a knife? Maybe you're more of a knife guy than me, maybe you own nicer knives than me, maybe you don't, or maybe you're just brand new trying to get one knife to last for the rest of your life. So how big of a value, or how big does value play when you're buying a knife? Are you trying to get the absolute best money every single time? Because for me, honestly, I don't see, that's not really an issue for me. For example, this Native Chief right here, this was a $250 knife. Do I think this is a very good deal? I think this is a little bit steep, especially compared to some of Spyderco's own prices. But still, I've enjoyed this knife. I actually really like it. And if I would have said, oh, that's way too overpriced, I never would have gotten to enjoy it. And I don't really see myself selling this unless I want another knife in the future and I'm willing to part with this one. And so imagine years from now, I'll probably be even more content with the price that I paid for this knife. And another thing I want to touch on is overpriced. This is something that a lot of people say, oh, this knife is overpriced, blah, blah, blah. It's something that just happens a lot in knife reviews. And overpriced is just an opinion. It really is. Unless you're talking about the James brand, we can all agree that is way overpriced. But overpriced, I think it's just an opinion, because there are some knives that are overpriced to a lot of people that aren't overpriced to some people. One example being Chris Reeve knives. One thing that I've noticed recently, and really just for a long time, is YouTubers, we try to be different than other people. That's something that I've been guilty of. You know, I have come down really hard on the PM2. I still don't like it that much, but it is still a quality knife, and I feel like I've come down really hard on the PM2 is because it seems like almost everyone else loves the knife, and I kind of just want to be different from other people, you know? And if I'm just the same as everyone else, who is going to watch my channel? So I see that. And I see that come up with Chris Reeve knives, because a lot of people, including me, say the Sebenza is their favorite knife and would be the one knife that they would have for the rest of their life. And so a lot of people say, man, these things are stupid overpriced. They're like $200 or $300 pricier than they should be. I can get a Riot and M390 titanium for $250 to $300. So why in the world would I pay this much money for a knife? And so a lot of people say Chris Reeve knives are absurdly overpriced, but I've been paying attention to the market recently, and Chris Reeve knives, if you guys haven't noticed, they are flying off the shelves. Like Tim Reeves said that a bunch of dealers are pressing him to get more production out just because it keeps selling out as soon as they get back in. Now, it's not like Spyderco sprint runs or GECs or something like that where they sell out in seconds or in minutes, but they can't keep Chris Reeve knives in stock. But so many people say they're overpriced. So they might be overpriced to some people, but for a lot of people, including me, I own 3 of them, 2 of them on the table right now. I don't think they're overpriced, and I'm perfectly happy with the money that I pay for them. So I guess my thought is just overpriced is just an opinion. One example that I have is the Vero company, Vero knives. They're made by Best Tech, and they are charging prices that I think are too high, but those things sell out in a couple minutes on his website. They're very popular. They're very much in demand right now. They actually go higher on the secondary, and so those are too expensive for my taste, but obviously not for a lot of other people's taste. So there is no way I could really say that the Vero knives are just overpriced in general, because they obviously aren't. People are obviously buying them up. Now, one thing that I think we all just need to get this out of the way, what a lot of people do is materials. They think that materials is the determining factor for the price of the knife. That's something that we've seen a lot with the 80-20.5, something we've seen with Sebenzas, and just Chris Reeve knives in general. People could look at a Blade HQ sheet. Yeah, this is my issue. So a lot of times people determine the value of a knife, and they could just, with their reasoning, they could determine the value from looking at a spec sheet on a website like Blade HQ or something, because they look at a knife like Chris Reeve knives. They say S35VN titanium frame lock, $550 with micarta, $450 for the plain version. That's absurdly overpriced. That makes no sense. With the Demco 80-20.5, they're like AUS 10 FRN. That for $150, I can get a Manix 2, which Spyderco doesn't really have that competitive prices. You can get a Manix 2 for cheaper with I would say about the same materials, and it's just like those knives. You may think they're overpriced, but once again, 80-20.5, that thing sold out everywhere. Those prices are slightly inflated on the secondary. I don't think many people are buying them just because, it's a production company, or they're producing them out of Taiwan, and that's, I believe, the same factory Cold Steel used. Don't know that for sure, but it's still one of those things where probably in a couple months they'll just be sitting there and you won't have to pay extra for them on the secondary. But still, it's just a knife. I just don't see how a knife can be overpriced just if they are all selling out of stock. At least some people might think they're overpriced, but obviously a whole lot more people don't think they are overpriced. And keep in mind, when you're saying is a knife overpriced or not, you really got to try it out. So those Vero knives, I need to try one, or I guess I don't really want to try one out, but I could try one out, and maybe after I do that, I say, okay, this price is worth it. Because materials, they just don't determine price. Because if you look at this 20 CV micarta, $185 made in America on this American Blade Works Model 1 V6. that is, if you just look at the materials, that is really good. And honestly, the build quality of this, I think that this price is pretty much a steal, at least right now, and that's probably why they sell out so quick. But a lot of people, if you just look at this, you're like, why in the world would this Sebenza cost so much more than this knife? Because if this was a titanium frame lock, it probably wouldn't be $450, you know? And so really, if you look at materials, you can't determine that. You got to look at where it's made, build quality of it. Build quality includes lots of things, you know, lock engagement, construction, chamfering, just all the little bit details that I don't really have the time to go into. And also warranty, that's a big issue. The smaller the company, the harder it is to have a good warranty. Because I mean, you think about it, like a company like Benchmade, they have a good warranty. I've never really used it, but it seems that it's a general statement that Benchmade has a good warranty. And if someone's like, you know, my blade broke a couple days into using it, I wasn't using it for anything hard, Benchmade, it's probably not going to be that big of a blow to their budget if they're like, all right, we'll just ship you out a new blade. Don't know if they'd actually do that or if they'd make you send it back, but still, imagine this company just run by a family. I think it's mainly one guy doing it, but maybe just a couple people running it, shipping out a new blade. That could, maybe that costs $30 to produce and all those things, and that could be a profit off of one knife. Also, taking the time to deal with customers, that is taking time out of the workday, out of production, out of being able to produce knives faster and eventually sell them. So warranty work, you got to know that if it's a good warranty on a smaller company, that is impressive to me, because usually they're having to pay one single person to do all the warranty work and all the customer service issues with that, and that is, they're basically paying a person for a free service that they offer to their customers. So they're really just kind of losing money. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, warranty is also one of those things that could factor into the price. Now, someone's probably going to say, well, the best warranty out there is one that you never have to use. I agree with that. My only thing is there's no possible way for a company to never make a mistake on any knife that they make. Now let me talk about some knives that I've got that I already kind of touched on the Native Chief, but after I've received it, you know, maybe I thought it was a little bit overpriced, that honestly, now that I have it, I don't care about the value at all. One, Sebenza's, you know, that was a steep price for me, but this Dragonfly right here in K390, I think this is about $100. Maybe it's like 98 or right under that. I don't know if they're still in stock anymore, but I mean, this is a tiny knife. I mean, here's an average size knife next to the Dragonfly. This is just an absurdly small knife. And it's a secondary. I would never really carry this by myself unless I'm going somewhere in very lightweight clothes that I expect, you know, not to really have to use a knife. And if I do, maybe just use it for something very little. This is a knife that I've had it for close to 7 months, or probably around 6 months, and it has been probably my most carried knife in that amount of time, just because I always have this in my pocket as a secondary, and I've used it a whole lot. And honestly, that price was steep when buying it, but after I have it, I have not really thought about that price at all, and I really enjoyed this knife. So that's something about value. I feel like value is more of an issue that concerns people before they buy their knives. You know, you're like, okay, is this worth the money? Is there a knife that I can get that is better quality for less money than this knife I'm about to buy? But after you buy it, if you're happy with it, if there's not any major issues with it, it's really not, I mean, value doesn't really mean much to you at all anymore. Just like Chris Reeve knives, you know, I could use this Civivi for the rest of my life for $50, but this $550 knife is still 100% worth it to me, because I can appreciate the build quality all the time, and just how this thing will pretty much outlast this by a long shot, just because how well it's built. I can appreciate that, and so that's why it is worth it to me. There are some knives out there that I would be happy to pay more for. For example, GEC. If you can get a GEC for table price, absolutely 100% do it. This knife has insane fit and finish, very thin grinds, not the best blade steel, 1084, but this is a secondary, so I don't really need good edge retention. Really good work on finishing, handle covers, I guess they call them, and this was about 90, I think it was $90 that I got it for. I got it off Knife Ship Free. But if you can get any GEC for table price, unless they're like the retailer is inflating the price, absolutely 100% do it. This GEC 47, I really wanted this knife, and I really do like it. It was about, I think it was close to 200 on the secondary, which is a pretty steep price that I paid for it. But honestly, I don't really know what is a good price, what is a bad price. I looked at it and I'm like, am I happy to pay that? And I was, and I haven't really regretted it since. And I think these were probably under 100 when they first came out. So one of the best values out there is with GEC, and it is shown that people will happily pay over table price for them, and that's why they sell out so fast, and that's why they go for more on the secondary market. Another knife that I'd happily pay more for is this Microtech Ludt. Just very good build quality, thin grind, good ergonomics. I really, really like this knife. I'd probably pay 300 bucks for this, especially compared to Microtech's other knives. You know, they have the Stitch and M390 that's 400 bucks. I want to try that one, but I got some other knives that now I can't afford the Stitch. And the Ludt, just really good build quality. I really like it, and I would probably pay up to $300 for this, you know, originally $250 knife. Let's look at another one. You guys probably seen it. I've seen it coming for a while. The Gale Bradley 2. This is $170 new. You got M4, very good liner lock. These handle materials aren't really that fancy. A lot of people don't like them, but I'd probably pay $250 for this knife. Just really, really good. I've gotten a whole lot of use out of it, and I actually did a video comparing it to the Sebenza and the Untitled. The Chris Reeve knives I like more, but still this thing held its own, and it's just a very, very good knife that I really enjoy using. A lot of people, yeah, that's another thing I want to talk about. People think materials are everything, and people think that the price jump between knives is just like because of the materials. You know, they think if the difference between like S30V and 20CV is like worth $50 worth of a difference, when the truth is these companies are buying these steels in bulk. They aren't really that big of a difference when it comes to the actual price of them. So a lot of times these little changes in materials aren't going to be that big of a price increase. A lot of people say with Chris Reeve knives, oh, for that price I at least need M390. Funny thing is, a lot of people saying that could not tell the difference between S35VN and M390 at all. They've probably never really used the steel or sharpened it enough to be able to tell, okay, I like this one more than the other. Now, would I prefer a nicely heat-treated M390 over a nicely heat-treated S35VN that you get on these Chris Reeve knives? Sure, I would prefer that, and I think it would be a better steel. But M390 consistently has shown that a lot of companies don't heat treat it well. I believe Chris Reeve knives, I believe they would heat treat it well, but still S35VN, it works. There's not really, I don't really have any issues with it. And a bunch of people think that materials are everything determining the price, when a lot of times it's the machining, the fitment, the amount of work that goes into making the knife, and the consistency overall with these knives. So that is just my opinion. I already touched on that 80-20.5. That's something that I wanted to see. Or, yeah, that's something I want to talk about with the 80-20.5. A bunch of people crapped on it for the Oz 10 for 150 bucks. Once again, Oz 10, people probably don't realize that that steel is decent. It's like 9CR18 MOV. You know, it's not going to be like Maximet or M4 with the edge retention, but you're not gonna, unless you're just absurdly using your knives, you're probably not going to use it so much in a day that it becomes so dull you can't complete any more cutting tasks. And a bunch of people were complaining that they want a better steel, and it's not like they're going to be able to slap Maximet or MagnaCut on there and keep it around the same price point. And I just feel like people are buying the 20.5 for that shark lock, for the kind of, they're almost buying the 80-20, but they want to try out what it's like, the little production version of it. So I guess that is just my thoughts on it. I don't think that knife's overpriced, and obviously we've seen them with inflated prices on the secondary, not extremely inflated prices, and so people are obviously willing to pay more retail, or more than what they charged retail. Now let's wrap it up. My thoughts about this: I think that value is something that has put too much emphasis on, unless you're talking budget knives, talking to people who might be trying to buy their first knife, getting the one knife, and then not really caring about knives anymore. I think that when you get into knife nuts, when you're getting into that $100 up, I would say $150 up maybe, value doesn't become all that much crucial of an idea. And also materials, this is a big note, materials do not determine the value of a knife. Can't stress that enough. I feel like if people, a lot of times, reviewers just determine the value of a knife by looking at a Blade HQ spec sheet. They just look at the steel, the handle materials, the locking mechanism, and then say, oh, I can get this for way cheaper, when a lot of times the build quality of these two knives are different, and the work that's put into them is different. The production levels is different, where it's made is different, and just a whole lot of factors to determine the different price increases. That is all that I got to say for today. Thank you guys for watching. Once again, answer the question in the comments: how big of a factor does value play when buying a knife to you? If you are a knife nut, if you are new to the knives, I want to see a lot of people answer this. But for those people who stuck it out the full 20 minutes, one, I appreciate you. Two, let me show you a new knife that I just got, the Hinderer Firetech. This is a Gen 2 in 20 CV. It is a tri-way. I kind of wish I would have been able to got the regular one, but those are really hard to find right now. This knife is just really cool. I bought it from Triple E EDC on his recent sale. Good seller, don't really have to vouch for a YouTuber, but still really cool. Really enjoy this knife. I'm not opening it because I'm Loctiting the pivot right now, and I don't want it to not fully settle. Just gotta wait a couple more hours, and then I'll be ready to open it all that I want. But that's all I got for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed these more discussion style of videos, I know I really like just talking and blabbing on for 20 minutes. So that's all I got to say. Don't forget to like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, and have a good 4th of July if I post this by then.